College football season is upon us, and the preseason AP Top 25 just came out, and today I will be reacting to the top 10 and giving you my thoughts. And please do not get mad, this is just my opinion. But without further ado, let's get into this. Number 1 is Georgia. No arguments whatsoever. Some people may think Michigan should get in, but Georgia is obviously the number 1. Back-to-back championships, no sign of slowing down. Number 2 is Michigan. Again, no complaints. I am a Michigan fan, and if you're a Michigan fan, I have more content on this channel covering Michigan that you should check out. Last year, they went undefeated, beat Ohio State, won their second straight Big Ten championship, lost a nail-biter in the playoffs to TCU, and this year, they return most of their starters back, and they have a great transfer portal, no complaints. Number 3 is Ohio State. Usually they're number 2, sometimes number 1. This year, they're number 3. No complaints, because they have the same exact talented roster that they do last year. I know their offensive line's a bit shaky, defense isn't the best because it's Ohio State, but their defense is still good. They have a lot of returning starters, and as long as they have that talented receiver room with Marvin Harrison and Emeka Egbuka, they're going to be good. Their question is their quarterback. Their quarterback is going to decide their season, but it's unfair not to put Ohio State in the top 5. Number 4 is Alabama. As much as I hate to admit it, that is an appropriate ranking for them. I don't think LSU is ready to jump them just yet, even though they did beat Alabama last year. As long as Nick Saban's there, they're always going to be good. They did lose players, but they also added some. A 2-loss season isn't terrible, and you can't leave Alabama outside the top 4 with this type of roster. They still have all the talent. If they have another subpar season, maybe I'd think about dropping them, but for now, they deserve to be in the top 5. Number 5 is LSU. I do understand why they're number 5. They have one of the most talented rosters with most of their players returning, but I think number 5 is a bit too early. They did, after all, have a 4-loss season last year, and while they did add a lot of players, they didn't have enough players from the portal to make me say, wow, this changes everything like a team like USC did. And even though they have a lot of returning players and they really reworked that secondary, I love their additions. They reworked their secondary, which was a weakness. They still have Jane Daniels left, but the thing is, a lot of their players are unproven right now. LSU's offensive line struggled last year, and while they do have a lot of players returning, I don't know if I can count on them being good. And while their wide receivers are very intriguing, Malik Neighbors is, of course, amazing, but they don't really have much depth right there. And while they are a very, very talented team, I think even though they add a lot of players, and a lot of players are returning, I feel like based off of last year, they were a 4-win team. I think they need to prove a little bit more for them to be a top 5. But still a very talented team, excited to see what they can do. 6 is USC. I think they should have been the number 5 team in the country. And I know you might think I'm drinking that Kool-Aid, but Lincoln Riley works magic with his offense. They still have Caleb Williams. They still have an amazing rushing attack. They added a bunch of wide receivers back, as always. That offensive line was run up to Joe Moore last year, and they got most of it back. Last year they lost a lot of receivers. They lost Jordan Addison, of course, but he just keeps working his magic because Mario Williams returns. They add Dorian Singer. They return Brendan Rice. But Mario Williams and Singer from Arizona alone are very good. Offensive line, again, is very experienced. In the defense, before I looked into their team, I was going to call them overrated because their defense, it was so bad last year. But they really did change it because they added a lot of DBs from the transfer portal. They added Christian Ronald Wallace from Arizona, and they return a lot of key players. And even though the defensive line's a bit of a question mark, I think they made enough of a leap with their secondary to grant the number 6 in the country ranking. Number 7, Penn State. I think they deserve this ranking because they had a very strong finish to last year. Even though their offense does have question marks that I criticize LSU for, 1, they're ranked number 7 in the country, not number 5. And 2, I actually think it's not as much questions. I think they have wide receiver depth problems, but they have one of the best running back duos in the country, second to Michigan. They got a talented quarterback who could be really good. They return a lot of good players. Keandre Lambert-Smith is back. But the main reason why I think they deserve number 7 is their defense. It is so good. It is so experienced. Keontae Ellis is back. Jalen King is back. Curtis Jacobs is back. Kobe King is back. Isaac is back. It's just really experienced, and I really like their defense. I think their defense is going to do really good, and if Aller can play good, I think that will carry them. 8 is Florida State, and while they are maybe barely a top 10 team, I think that 8 is a pure reaction. I know they went like 10-3 last year, but still 10-3 in the ACC is not very good at all. They've not been very good in the past, and while I love their additions, they have a great QB, great receiving core now. I do think that there is some uncertainties kind of like LSU, and we do not know how Coleman is going to do in the new system. Their slot receiver is kind of an issue, but they have a great QB. I think they are still inexperienced, but I love the additions they made in their secondary. Very good. I think this team is going to be very hot and cold because when their offense is clicking, it's going to be clicking, but we don't know how the new additions are going to be. We don't know how the new additions to the secondary are going to be. A lot of questions, but still a very, very talented team. I think they belong barely in the top 10. Number 9 is Clemson. I do not really get it at all, because their QB position is one of the most questionable in the country. When Kate Cudnett played last year, he looked terrible. And while they return a top offensive line, I do not like their receivers. Even though they have very, very high upside, I feel like they haven't shown enough. It's kind of a question mark. Same thing with their running back. They have a great duo. I think their offense is just full of question marks. And I think while they're going to be improved from last year, their offense is going to be a bit better. I don't see enough of an improvement to make them a good offense, because last year they were so bad and they haven't changed much other than the QB. And they do have a top defensive line, but I think it's a bit overrated because it's not as established as other ones. Their defensive backs are also, they're good, but we need to see if they can play good. I do really like their safeties, RJ Micken and Andrew Mukumba, or however you say his name. I like them. I love their linebacking core too. I love Jeremiah Trotter and Carter, but I think their defensive line is going to be great, but I think sometimes it's not going to be enough if they play teams out of conference. But they have an overall elite defense, but their defense isn't good enough to justify top 10 spots with this much of a question mark offense. Number 10 is Washington. I really like their team. They're a sleeper pick in the Pac-12, but I would have given teams like Texas or Tennessee spots over Washington, because last year seems like a fluky year. It doesn't really seem like they're gonna run it back, because this year their defense is still a question mark. I love the defensive line. It's one of the top in the country, and I think their defense is gonna improve, but will their secondary also improve? And while their defense is very experienced, last year they weren't the best group in the country, and especially towards the end of the year, and I don't think they added enough to stop that defense. And even though they have a talented team, as long as Penix is there, they're going to be good. I don't think they've improved enough, especially compared to these other teams, to justify a top 10 spot. I still think they're really good. Hope you guys enjoyed. This is just my opinion. See you guys later. Bye.